Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside the Pigskin. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Manmouth, and boy, it must be really great to be in the Motor City, and we'll get to that in a moment. I want to let everybody know that Inside the Pigskin being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Inside the Pigskin can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for more subscribers. Also, please comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Participate in the chat room. That's one way to do it. Or send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, give me a call at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. Our Twitter/X is at Tribune South. Candy Ambling is behind the scenes producing the show. My book is out on Amazon and Kindle. It's called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. We want to give us good evening to Will Vogel as well. Glad to have you back in the chat room, Will. You know, we'll call you the Robert Redford of the chat room. You're definitely the natural when it comes to rambling off facts. So glad to have you back. All right, now to the crew. We'll start from top to bottom. Mel Farr Jr., welcome back, Mel. Don't know about the hat, but I can tell you now everybody can see that thing. Nice hat.
Thank you very much. Good to be back. Happy New Year.
Thanks. Same to you. And George Eichhorn, the co-author in this group.
Thank you very much for having me, Scott, and Happy New Year again to everyone.
And K.R. Lombardia, the guy that definitely likes football a lot more than baseball, so he'll be in this show, and once in a while he'll make an occasional appearance on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. He's worked his way into the Pigskin rotation. Welcome back, K.R.
Good to be here, Scott. Happy New Year.
Thanks, you too. And Bo Crouch, Football Talk with Bo.
How's it going, guys? Good to be back. Happy New Year.
And Coach Bono is out of town. Hope to have him back next week. All right, well, let's get to the agenda. Well, it's pretty obvious by the title of the show, Hail to the Victors. The Michigan Wolverines win their title. The first one, which has been uncontested since 1948. They won 34-13 over the Washington Huskies. They have 12 titles in their pocket. Okay, we'll start off with Bo. I know that you're going to take the Seattle side with the Washington Huskies. You see it from a different way, so there's no better person to lead off than with you, Bo.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, kudos to Michigan. They came out, they won that game. And, the Huskies, you could tell they were worried about the running game from Michigan. And it looked like they were going to try and do something similar they did to Oregon, where they were really going to come down and make you beat them with their arm. The problem is they were being so hyper aggressive at the beginning of the game that a lot of those big plays happened because guys were just out of position. And sometimes just playing fundamental football is the difference. And, if you leave the area you're supposed to be in, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work in a big way. So there were definitely some things that Washington did to themselves that was a problem. Penalties was an issue. There were some really key drops, but more than anything, they just really didn't have any answer for that Michigan defensive line. And Penix was not really running for his life, but he was never comfortable in the pocket, and every release had to be quick because he was going to get hit. They did only get one sack, but if you look at the quarterback hurry stat, that's the one that's important because I don't know if he had a single snap under center where he didn't have some form of getting pushed off his spot.
I got to ask you a question. Do you feel that Michael Penix Jr. hurt his draft stock last night? Obviously, he went up against a buzzsaw defense with the Wolverines, but let's face it, the Wolverines have always been able to make everybody uncomfortable. Don't believe me. Just go back a week ago when they pinned 6 sacks on Alabama. But, let's face reality, the Wolverines were on a mission, and Michael Penix Jr., to me, he's a heck of a quarterback, but boy, I'll tell you that he just looked vulnerable last night.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it necessarily hurt his stock. So if he would have won, his stock would have went up, right? Like he would go probably earlier in the draft. But he is probably still that kind of mid to late first round type of pick. He got beat up in that game. He actually showed a lot of fight, battling through what looked like some rib injuries, but it also showed that he can battle through that. So, one of the knocks on him was, he's had 2 ACLs, he's injury prone and all of this. And he battled through getting beat up that whole game, finished it out. And, I think that actually helps when you're talking to NFL scouts like, hey, he was in there. He got beat up. He didn't leave the game. He finished it out as best he could. And he finished it out when he knew he was going to get smashed some more because that line couldn't really slow anybody down.
Yeah, and of course, what Michigan did to the Huskies, the way they ambushed them early with those 2 rushing touchdowns, thanks to Donovan Edwards, and all of a sudden you get Blake Corum involved. My goodness, I mean that's a double jeopardy if I ever saw one. So without a doubt. So, I guess you guys know who Donovan Edwards is now off in Seattle, don't you? Yeah, of course, everybody knows about Blake Corum. I'm not trying to rub it in. I just know that was a good start for Michigan, and obviously pinned Washington in a hole that it was obviously difficult for them to get out, although they showed game and fought until it got out of control. So, but any thoughts about Donovan Edwards before I turn over to Mel?
No. I mean, they just had a great game all around from Michigan. So, I mean, it's funny. Some people are complaining about the lack of, some of the calls from the refs because there was obvious holding here and there. But let's be honest, there's no holding call that would have changed the outcome of that game. If you're reaching for blaming the Zebras at this point, you didn't watch that game.
Okay, fair enough. All right, we'll turn over to Mel. Observations from last night.
The game was a good game. We got to watch a very hard-fought game with 2 very well-coached football teams. I think that obviously Michigan, their so-called pressure bothered Washington. They weren't able to pick it up, which I was kind of surprised by, given the fact that they had an extra week to look at what they did against Alabama. A lot of the pressure they brought really wasn't pressure. It was still 4 guys or maybe even 5 guys. So, I mean, you'd have an opportunity to get a body on the body. It's just the way that they did it, kind of overload one side and then would drop off in pass coverage on the other side, and nobody was sliding on that overload side. So I was kind of surprised by that, especially since Washington does throw the ball quite a bit. So we talked about it last week. It's going to be, there's going to be strength on strength. What good on good, what Washington does well and what Michigan does well. And, whichever team executed better was the team that was going to be the eventual winner. And obviously, we knew what Michigan could do on offense. Whether or not Washington was going to be able to stop them offensively, that was going to be a question, and I think that question was answered. And I think it was answered on the defensive side of the ball as well. I mean, they really didn't have an answer for that pressure. Michigan was putting pressure on him all the time, confusing him. And you asked the question, about his draft stock. That was one of the things that I was thinking about while I was watching the game. And it can't help. I definitely don't think a performance like that helps. In particular, when you see him bail out in certain situations, because he knew the rush was coming. Some of the passes that he threw, he wasn't on. And I understand, people have bad days, and he just had a bad day. If you look at him the week before, he couldn't miss. I mean, he was dropping dimes, but just yesterday, I don't know if he was just rushed a little bit because of the pass rush or just a bad day at the office. But I mean, it was a bad day to have a bad day at the office.
That's true. Okay, George.
Well, obviously, everybody here in the state, unless you're a Spartans fan, of course, and there are many of those, are extremely happy. The monkey is finally off Jim Harbaugh's back. My God, it took him 9 years. And, I'm not one to criticize, but that's a long time. Nobody really thought it would take 9 years to get a champion here, but they did. And I agree. I agree with Bo and Mel so far, and Scott. What all you guys have said have been spot on. Now, here's the stat I'm looking at right now. And I know he's a prolific passer, but you cannot have 20 carries for 46 yards. Are you kidding me, Washington? Compared to Michigan with 38 for 303.
Right.
And of course, those 2 blowout runs. Donovan Edwards, it was just, he's been kind of low-key this year through no fault of his own. Blake has been carrying most of the load, as you guys know, game to game, but Donovan is still a fire plug and spark plug to that team. So, obviously Penix was not on his game. There's no question about that. He looked very hurt, very beat up, especially in that fourth quarter when they tried to make a valiant effort to come back. But no, you're never going to win a game, obviously, when you got a defensive front like Michigan had, and just tremendous coaching. Just a great job by the assistants, all the coordinators. I mean, Harbaugh is blessed with a lot of great coaches there on his sideline. Um, the coverage strategy was fantastic. I mean, you saw 2, 3, 4, 5. One play, I saw 5 Michigan defenders back there breaking up a pass that was intended for one of their all pro, I call them all pro receivers. We know several of them are going to go in the NFL draft. So yeah, Michigan just neutralized the passing game. They neutralized any kind of rush that Washington was going to throw at them. And quite frankly, I mean, it did not turn out to be as close a game as one would have thought, because when it was halftime and the score was 17-10, there were a lot of people saying, hey, this, and rightfully so, this is a great game, and it's going to be a dogfight right to the very end, until again that Michigan blew it open at the end. So hats off to Harbaugh. We don't know if he's going to stay, but what a great joy for him. His parents there on the field, and of course his brother was there too from Baltimore, and a great day for the Harbaugh family as well.
KR.
I don't think that Penix's draft status got hurt. It's hard to throw on your back or when you can't set your feet. The only reason they got any yards is because DeBurr has a great scheme with the bubble screens and the tunnel screens and get rid of the ball right now. And anytime he didn't do that and he had to set his feet, he couldn't, because Washington could not handle Michigan's front. And Michigan's defensive coordinator did a great job. He blitzed and brought somebody, always brought one more guy than they could block. And if you do that, you can't throw the ball. And I think that's not Penix's fault. Michigan defense scheme that was tremendous. I think their offensive scheme was awesome. Ran the ball. They're just a much better team, I think. Michigan. I think if they played them 10 times, they beat them 10 times. They're that much better. And I don't think that Penix is the guy to blame for the loss, because I played that position at a high school level. If you can't set your feet and you can't throw the ball, you're in trouble.
Okay. One of the things I like to do before I come on the air, especially in the morning, is I like to go to Get Up and First Take to try to get their opinions on what's going on, especially for specific type of shows. And the one thing I really, really enjoyed with both of these particular shows was watching Paul Feinbaum become a Michigan Wolverines fan. They call him the mouth of the South. Of course, when I lived in North Carolina trying to sell advertising in NASCAR country, my boss called me mouth of the South long before Paul Feinbaum. But you know what? I got to give Paul his due. He's been eating crow, and he's gotten to know the Wolverines program a lot. And, you know, he gave credit where it's due with the Wolverines winning, you know, and he's gotten to know the program a lot more, and he doesn't mind owning up. What's important for everybody is we can all own up to something if we're not right, you know, or it doesn't work out. I don't think anybody can have a big enough ego to not own it or eat crow once in a while. If I make a mistake, I'll do it. But with all due respect to Paul, you know, he got to know Harbaugh, the program. He's, you know what? Everybody talks about this championship tainted. No way. First of all, suspended the first 3 games, but suspended during an important part of the year. And they still won because he kept cohesiveness with the coaching staff, and his players were united. And that's a sign of a good leader. I'm not going to get any other specifics in terms of that. We'll leave that for other shows. But kudos to Paul Feinbaum. And yeah, I like watching those shows. The more information I can get, which will fuel what we're doing, the better off we are. We got a bunch of topics we want to get to, which I want to try to keep it to about an hour max, but we knew this one was going to take a little time. And maybe the next one might too. Matthew Stafford versus Jared Goff at Ford Field. All right, you know what? I'm going to go bottom to top on this one, Mr. Ford Field. George, are you going to the game?
Yes, Scott, I'll be there covering the game for us, and looking forward to it. Obviously, the first home playoff game in such a long time. And, you know, the Lions really have been on a magical ride. They've had some hiccups along the way. They still finished with 12 wins. But it's going to be very interesting, because I do not think that they really wanted to draw the Rams. But then again, it could work to Detroit's advantage, because Jared Goff has, was stuffed to the roadside and kicked out of the stadium by LA and McVay and the team, and certainly if he wants to really battle it, as he will be battling it, he has a lot to say about this game, with obviously trying to tell LA Rams to stick it. And Matthew Stafford, on the other hand, of course, he was very much liked, very much, even though Detroit had many down years. The fans here always, appreciated his hard effort. He was very, very active in the Detroit community, helping out with so many different programs and helping build the high school. And in Mel, this, Matthew did so much to help the kids in Detroit, just as you are with your camps and your great work, Mel. Okay, I'll read it, Scott. Will said, this is the most exciting game this weekend, in my opinion. As we know, the main storyline to quarterbacks traded for each other. I mean, there's no question about it. I told my friends, I says, you watch, this is going to be one of the night games. It was either going to be the Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night. They got 3 night games. It's going to be an interesting game. Detroit's got a great defense, obviously, and all these offensive weapons. So I'll let the other guys talk next, Scott. But yeah, it'll be a hell of a game.
All right. Well, you know what? The guy I'm going to turn to now is Mel Farr Jr. Some thoughts about this one?
Well, it's kind of if you look at it, you have to say, well, maybe they wrote this script, because you have the storylines that you have with obviously with Detroit and the Rams, and then you have the Packers and the Cowboys. So I mean, we know Hollywood loves great stories. We know the NFL loves great storylines, and I just don't think you could pick any better storylines than those two right there to feature on a football game. We know how big football is, so I'm looking forward to that. Either team would be a difficult team for the Lions. I think the Packers are kind of, after the win that they had, they're feeling themselves. They're feeling good about themselves. They're a young team. They're kind of on the up. The Rams, Matthew Stafford's playing well. They got they got a good little running game going. They're young. They're hungry. They got some guys who've made the Pro Bowl for the first time. You got the Puka Nacua, who's setting all kind of records his rookie year. I don't think either team is a team you want to face, but if it were me, I definitely want to face the Rams, because, and particularly if I was on defense, because I want to try to knock Matthew Stafford out. And and if I'm Jared Goff, I would want to show the Rams that they made a big mistake, that he was the better deal and he was the better player in that trade. Now, obviously, the Rams went on to win a Super Bowl, but who's to say that they wouldn't have won a Super Bowl with Jared there? I mean, you just don't know. But there's some interesting storylines this weekend.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Jared Goff is making a genius out of Brad Holmes, that's for sure, because not only did they trade him for one another, the Lions got draft capital as well. So with that said, we'll turn it over to Bo.
Yeah, I mean, continuing the conspiracy theory, right? You could end up with Flacco going against Baltimore if, things go that direction. So, I mean, they got all the storylines they could possibly want. But, yeah, I mean, this is a bigger game for Goff than it is for Stafford, because Stafford, he moved, he got a ring, right? I mean, he doesn't have anything he has to try and prove, whereas, Jared Goff, he wants to dunk on his old team, right? You got me out of here, you win a ring that year. He probably thinks he could have won that ring too. So, I think Detroit has a little more behind them trying to win that game.
All right, KR.
I'd love to see Detroit win this. I like Campbell. I think they're doing a great job. My cousin, who passed away some years ago, was a huge Detroit Lion fan, going back to the days of Bobby Lane. So, and I used to hear him talk about got him Farr, that played defensive back, was a pretty good damn player. He loved him. But I'd like to see Detroit. They haven't been there a long time. I know Wayne Fonts, his brother is my brother's brother-in-law, and I've known them for years. And I've always cheered for the Lions when Wayne was the coach. And I like to see them come back. It would be nice, just to show the world that Jared Goff's a hell of a quarterback. I thought he was.
The only thing I'll say about it, if Jared Goff leads the Detroit Lions to a Super Bowl win, he'll have something in common with Barry Sanders. He's getting a statue outside of Ford Field, and I'll rest my case.
We know it's really a good trade for both teams because they've both been successful at the other places. So,
Well, yeah, you want win-win situation, but let me tell you, Jared Goff wins the Lions a Super Bowl title. There will be a statue outside of Ford Field. Take that to the bank, period. Okay, on to the next subject. Oh, yeah. So on to the next thing. We had a controversial 1-yard touchdown by Jamal Williams. His only touchdown of the year. Jameis Winston audible at the line of scrimmage to change the play, ethical or not. Okay, let's realize that there was no shortage of touchdowns in Detroit for Williams, but this was the only one, and it certainly ruffled a bunch of feathers talking about the Atlanta Falcons. All right, Bill, we're going to start off with you on this one.
Yeah, I mean, so this one's tough because on one hand, you want to say if you don't like it, stop it. But on the other hand, they were in victory formation. So, like, if you were going to do it, like, square up, let them know. Don't have them think you're just going to, pat hands and run the clock out and you punch it in. Like that is kind of it's kind of a low way to do it. Like if you were to audible out, then fully audible out, right? Show that you're like, no, we're going to get our guy a touchdown. And if you don't want him to get it, stop it. But if you have them lined up in a way where they think, yeah, you're kneeling it out, this thing's over. Like that's just kind of it's kind of a low way to do it. But at the same time, they could have came over the top and tried to, take their head off too. So, I mean, that can backfire on you next year.
All right. Well, just say it. Slap in the face. Okay. That's all you have to say. But
there was some other phrases I was going to use, but this is your broadcast.
Okay. It's a family show. We're trying to keep it real, but slap in the face. There are many pastors that's going to give you a hard time about saying slap in the face.
Yeah. But I mean, I definitely understood why, Arthur Smith was mad. Because I would have been too, just because it's, if you're coming at us, then come at us, let us know. And only because it was the, victory formation. Otherwise, I don't care. Run the score up. If you don't like it, stop it.
Well, Dennis Allen did apologize to him, but he wanted no part of it. And of course, 3 hours later, it didn't matter. Arthur Smith was no longer the Falcons coach.
Yeah, they barely let him get off the airplane.
Yeah, 3 hours. Yeah, take the flight back. All of a sudden, boom, Arthur, you can look for another job. You're out of here, and then they'll forget about you, but they won't forget about the play. All right, Carol Lombardia. My goodness, this is a hot tamale.
It's not Smith's fault. They shouldn't have done that, but I mean, it wasn't Dennis Allen's fault. It was the players did it, and I remember something a while back, 1972. That's a long way ago, when Florida fell down against Miami. So John Reese could get the ball back and break the NCAA record for passing yards. And talk about Bush League. The defense laid on the ground to let Miami score, so Florida get the ball back. I think that was Bush League. It really was. What New Orleans did was Bush League too, but you want to do it for one of your players that you really like and you really respect, and that's a fine line there. The guy he's probably loved by his players. He hadn't scored all year,
right? And
now he has a chance to score. So, I mean, the game meant nothing to anybody because they were out of it. So, it's just tough. But it was not Dennis Allen's fault. He wanted to take a knee and they didn't do it.
Right. No, I'm with you. Okay, we'll turn over to George.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that either. You guys have summed it up very well. And KR, you're right. I mean, the Saints and the Falcons were not going anywhere, but it's still not right. I wouldn't conduct business that way on the football field late in a game like that. It reminded me of Scott. You'll remember this when Jim Schwartz and Harbaugh, I believe it was, had words after one of the games in Detroit.
Yeah, remember.
And the coaches, and boy, I tell you, these coaches, when they met at midfield after the game, I thought a brawl might break out. You could see both of them had their protection with them in the form of their assistant coaches or security or both. Some people wear both hats maybe, but I just thought it was bush league. I didn't like it at all, and I feel bad because it had to end that way. I really don't think that there's a place for that in the NFL, especially like you guys said with the victory formation, a foregone conclusion. It should have been. And Will Vogel, Scott and guys says this is not ethical. They should have now need the ball, because they were up so much. Agree with you, Will.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm sure a lot of people definitely agree with you. All right, let's run over to Mel. What do you think? You played this game.
Yeah, I didn't like it. If you're going to do it, at least line up in a formation. Don't do it out of the victory formation. Everybody's kind of laxed, and next thing you know, your guys are going full speed. I mean, that's how people get hurt when everybody's not going full speed. So, if they wanted to do that, which I don't see why. I mean, you hadn't scored a touchdown all year long. Wait to game 17 to score a touchdown. I mean, it's like kissing your sister. I don't just go into the house. I mean, you didn't score a touchdown for whatever reason all year long. There's no need. I mean, I don't even know how you could even celebrate and everything like that. Like you did something great. I mean, the other team really laid down for you. They're expecting one thing, and you guys do something else. You can't feel good about that. I mean,
makes you wonder if they had a incentive in his contract where he had to get at least a score.
Then nothing has come up. They just, said the guys.
Yeah.
I know. I guess he was hurt. I think he's been hurt most of the year. He came from Detroit,
okay.
So I think he's been hurt quite a bit. I think he got hurt earlier on in the season, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, either way. I mean, they should have took a knee. They had an opportunity to score on the interception. I think it was. The guy didn't make it to the end zone. They wanted to score, but at that point in time, the game is over. It's well in hand, and Arthur was already feeling a certain way. I mean, he could read the writing on the wall. Arthur Blank's not talking to him. McKay's not really talking to him. He knew he knew what was going to happen in less than 3 hours. So he wasn't. He was a little hyped up. He was feeling the pressure because he knew the conversation that he was about to have, and that didn't help. I'm certain that didn't help.
So everybody's spoken on this, right? Just to make sure everybody here. The only thing I'll say about the thing is unity is one thing, but when you compromise integrity, then there's that fine line that you have to draw. Well, when you look in hindsight, okay, the Lions didn't sign Jamal Williams, but how did that David Montgomery signing look? Looks a whole lot better a year after. Nobody's going to, you wonder about what decisions you made or didn't make, but David Montgomery has turned out quite well for him as well. All right, one more topic I want to get to, and then what we'll do is everybody will have an opportunity to talk the game that you're looking forward to. That topic, I know I didn't want the Lions to face the Green Bay Packers again. I have obviously an internal house situation to deal with my significant other, and it's one thing that we have to battle twice a year, but to have to deal with it in the playoffs. Oh, Nelly, as the late Keith Jackson would say, or as Dick Enrick would say, oh my, I don't need it 3 times in 1 year. So I'm glad we got the Rams. But with that said, the Green Bay Packers are in the playoffs, and Aaron Rodgers is staying home, and Mike McCarthy's facing his old team, Jordan Love. So, all right, Mel, what are your thoughts about this matchup?
With the Lions and the Rams?
No, we're talking about the Packers and the Cowboys. Hey, Jennifer, how you doing?
Packers and the Cowboys.
Happy New Year.
I mean, again, we're talking about the storylines. We're talking about the storylines with the Lions and the Rams, and it's a great storyline. Mike McCarthy, he gets ran out of, or Aaron Rodgers kind of runs him out of Green Bay. He's sitting in his barn or whatever it is for a year, thinking, trying to reinvent himself, I guess, in a certain way, and all of a sudden, wasn't talked about a whole bunch, but he emerges as the leading candidate to coach the Dallas Cowboys, and he gets the job. And ever since he's gotten the job, they wanted to fire him. I mean, he just can't do anything right there, but he's done an outstanding job. To be honest with you, if you look at the coaching job he's done an outstanding job there. So it'll be interesting to see, because the last thing I know that he wants to do is lose to his former team.
Right.
We know Jerry Jones. He just wants another Super Bowl so bad that he can taste it, and he feels he's getting close to it here. So I mean, it's going to be a good game. They're young. They don't. they don't really understand the magnitude. How, when I talk about young, I'm talking about the Packers. How the level of play ratchets up to another level. They're going to find out, and we're going to see. It's going to be interesting to see. They're playing with house money. They have nothing to lose, so we'll see how it goes and see what happens. But I do expect the Cowboys to handle them.
Okay. All right, Bo.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty much the same way there. Like, I think the Cowboys will get it done. Obviously, the storyline's great. They couldn't have dialed up a better thing had they scripted it, right? So whether you adhere to the tinfoil hat and you think that's how it really works, or you think it's just dumb luck, in either scenario, like that, you couldn't have asked for the better storylines for super wild card weekend. But yeah, the Cowboys should get this done, no problem.
KR.
Well, I'm a Dak Prescott fan because of Mississippi State, so I'm looking forward to that. They don't have it though. I don't think that the Cowboys have it to win it all. I don't. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Other than Tampa, I like to see them win it. They just lack something consistency, I think. But that's a game I'm looking forward to because the Packers have really come along at the end of the year, and Jordan Love has proven that he was the right guy to follow Rodgers. So that should be interesting. And I like to see Detroit win.
Okay. All right, George.
Yeah, I mean, Scott, I would have never suspected. I mean, I know they beat Detroit, Green Bay did on Thanksgiving Day, and to win and rattle off 5 wins. Let's see here: the Panthers, the Vikings, the Bears, the Bengals, and the Seahawks, and of all teams losing to the Patriots. I just, although I'm sorry, I got it wrong. I'm sorry, I got the schedule wrong, guys. I apologize. I'm looking at a couple of the exhibition games. I'm sorry about that, but yeah, they have had even before the Detroit game, they beat the Chargers. So I stand corrected. 6 out of 8, the Packers, and the Rams 7 out of 8 or something like that. So these are 2 hot teams. I mean, Mel, you got it, man. And these are the 2 top games. And I'm telling you, it's going to be a dogfight. I mean, I'm not counting out of Green Bay at all because of what they did to Detroit on Turkey Day. But that being said, we know the Cowboys are on a roll. They can't be beaten at home right now. So it would take a perfect game by Jordan Love. But hats off to Jordan and the Packers on a really nice season, a nice comeback, and to get into the wild card round with a 9-8 record.
And the only thing I'll say about it is Aaron Rodgers was looking for greener pastures, and he got him with Gang Green with the New York Jets. Who would have thought that the script would have been flipped, where Rodgers was looking at a team that obviously there's an awful lot of drama on Broadway, right? But meanwhile, Jordan Love is loving the postseason. Are there some good one-liners? You better believe it. So, the outcome of this game is, I would love to see the Packers go ahead and actually win the game. I have to make a confession, though. Candy was rooting for the Detroit Lions to beat the Minnesota Vikings so her Packers could get in the playoffs, but couldn't get her to wear a Lions hat. That would have been going too far. So, never post her button on that. So, I'd like to see the Packers win it. I mean, like everybody says, around house money. But I'm really going to lean towards Aaron Rodgers. Be careful what you ask for. You did get greener pastures, but the only green net you had was what you're wearing, and you only lasted 4 snaps. Jordan Long, again, they're going to have to make a decision on him pretty soon, too. Well, they're going to have, when they deal with their contract, and this team's ahead of schedule. So more power to the Packers. And I think a lot of people in Detroit are still fuming over the gift that Dallas got, where the Lions came away with a bad break just a short time ago. All right, what we're going to do now is our final segment of the night is the game that you're looking forward to. We're going to go top to bottom with George Icor. What's the game you're looking forward to?
Yeah, well, obviously for me, it's going to be the Lions and the Rams. I mean, just great storylines like we've already talked about. Obviously, a great audience. Sunday Night Football. Mike Tirico will be in the house, and Collinsworth and the whole gang from NBC. And I think they do a great job with Sunday Night Football, by the way. And it's not just because Mike and Tony Dungy have ties to Michigan, but that they're really true professionals. I like that crew. And another thing I was going to mention to you guys is, the officials came out And you won't see our friend Brad Allen in this opening round weekend, okay? Guys like Martin, Schaeffers, Rogers, Torbert, Wolstadt, and Hill are the 6 referees that were selected to work the wild card weekend round. And Scott alluded to the terrible call, of course, Brad Allen's crew made with the check-in by Detroit's offensive tackle as an eligible receiver and that whole shenanigans that happened there in Dallas. But that being said, I look for a great game. I mean, it's going to be ironic. Stafford against Goff. It's just going to be crazy. And it will be loud. Trust me, guys. It will be loud, probably the loudest we've ever seen in Ford Field. Obviously, it's the first playoff game ever in Ford Field. As you know, they hosted the Super Bowl between Pittsburgh and Seattle that year, and one time. And the Silverdome, of course, as we all know, no longer Detroit's home, was the last time Detroit was in the playoffs. So it's going to be crazy, obviously. But yeah, that's my number 1 game. And there are still plenty of great matchups, Scott. But that's mine.
So, George, quick question to you. We know
Sure.
that Rico lives in Ann Arbor. We know he's going to be drinking the Michigan Blue. But here's the thing. Do you think he's going to put an asterisk next to this game like he didn't hesitate to do against the Kansas City Chiefs when they didn't have a key player? Because, in my opinion, this should be an opportunity for Tirico to act like Paul Feinbaum. How about eating a little crow? Because the Kansas City Chiefs were obviously not the buzzsaw everybody expected. So if you go out there and you talk to Mike and you're lucky enough to get him before, are you going to put an asterisk next to the Detroit Lions this time? Or are you going to finally give him the Rodney Dangerfield when he wants just a little bit of respect?
Yeah, no, I agree, Scott. And we're going to see I'm sure we'll see more than a few homemade signs, too, that some of the fans will be bringing them and teasing Tirico on that asterisk after they defeated. Of course, you're talking about opening night in Kansas City when Detroit beat the Chiefs. So, that was not a good comment for him to make at that time, and it still isn't.
And it started with him, and now he's getting another one on the very back end like he did a year ago when the Lions ended up beating the Packers at Lambeau, and he gets them there on yet another prime time game at the very end. All right, we're going to turn over to Mel Farr Jr.
I mean, all the games are, I love this time of year. Playoff football games should be competitive. Win or go home. There's a lot on the line. I like all the games, but I guess, I'm going to have to go with the Detroit and the Los Angeles game, I guess, as well, because I grew up in Detroit and obviously I played for the Rams. So, yeah, I guess that's the game that I'm looking forward to because I got a little emotion attached to that game, I guess. So, that's the game I'm looking forward to watching.
Okay, fair enough. Turn it over to Bo.
Yeah, I mean, the one I think could be interesting to watch is the Tampa Eagles game because it's sort of a redemption season for Baker, right? And admittedly, I'm not a Baker fan. He's wildly inconsistent, but they're going up against a Eagles team that clearly peaked early. They go 10-1, and then they win one more game the rest of the way. Excuse me.
All right.
I got a sneeze that's hanging out right there. So I think this is going to be an interesting game because Tampa is coming along. They're playing pretty good football, and the Eagles are finding different ways to lose every week. So no rest. They're still coming off this losing streak coming in. I think this could be a very interesting game, one that Tampa could steal, which is interesting coming out of a division that everybody assumed was going to put someone in the playoffs and get smoked. But the way that the Eagles are playing, this could be a good game.
Okay. KR?
Well, the Eagles in Tampa because it's here. But being a Dak Prescott fan, I'm looking forward to the Dallas game because, I don't think they can just run out there and just run Green Bay off the field. I think they're going to have some problems. I think that Green Bay is very capable of beating them. And of course, the Lions and the Rams is going to be very interesting. It's hard to just pick one game, guys.
I know. I make it very difficult for everybody on the show. That's why you had to do it. All right. So, Will Vogel, I have to ask you a question. Let's see what you really have retained with some of the teaching that I've given you. Do you remember what GMTA stands for, Will? Let me know, yes or no. Meanwhile, while you're answering that question, okay, what GMTA stands for. He'll go ahead if you don't, and if you don't know it, well, no big deal. Okay, but the one I'm going with is the Dolphins and the Chiefs return of Tyreek Hill to Kansas City. Now, of course, it doesn't hurt that you're going to look at it 2 degrees, and the Miami Dolphins, because they lost to Buffalo on their over at Hard Rock Stadium, put themselves in a very cool position for all the wrong reasons. So, and again, we saw the Kansas City Miami game overseas. So now we get to see Tyreek Hill in Kansas City, and it's going to get cold. Now, to Tyreek Hill's credit, okay, he played in Kansas City, but you can't say the rest about the fish there. And, in layman's terms, when you talk about fish during this time of the year, talk about ice fishing. Well, that's fun. And I've never done it before, but I've seen a lot of lakes there. We have little holes in there as well. And it's also going to be streamed on Peacock as well. So if you're able to stream the game, that's how you're going to find it. I think in our neck of the woods, we'll be able to get it, but you better jump on Peacock quick if you want to see it, or look at your local or look at whatever app.
From the sound of it, it's only going to be on Peacock.
Exactly. That's what I heard too. So
there's no national televised, even in your local market. It sounds like it is only on Peacock.
Yeah,
but is terrible.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if South Florida will have it, or actually Kansas City. I don't know. We'll find out. If it isn't, well, that's okay. I'm sure.
Probably on the NFL Network or something, won't it?
No, it's supposed to be exclusive to Peacock. So basically, I'm going to be going to a sports bar because I don't have Peacock.
And same with me. I mean, we don't have it here. So, yeah, that's the way I understood it too. But I'm with Scott. Usually they'll let the local market, your ABC affiliate or whatever it is, Fox or whatever that carries your bulk of your games. But Bo, you don't think so, right? You don't think the locals?
So what I was reading is it's only on Peacock. So it doesn't sound like it's your regional, normal local stations. It doesn't sound like it's going to be simulcast on NFL Network, NFL Plus. You might be able to see it on a delay with what is that, Fubo or something like that. There might be a delay on that one, just because I'm not sure exactly how that works. But yeah, from the sound of it, it was supposed to be only Peacock, which seems like an incredible misstep for the playoffs, right? I mean, you're basically limiting your viewer base based on a streaming service. Now, they did some of that during the season with ESPN Plus, right? Like there were a couple of games here and there that they did that too. But this one, it sounds like it's Peacock and that's it.
Well, all I'll say about the whole thing is this, okay? And by the way, Will, if you don't know, it's great minds think alike anyways. And I'm glad that you incorporated your comment, because that's exactly where we were both going with it, with Kansas City and Miami. Good stuff, Will. But yeah, we'll find out. It'll be interesting to go out there and mention it. So yeah, Candy, why don't you get Will's comment up there again? Second is Chiefs versus Dolphins. I definitely believe that Will and I are thinking the same way. So, but that's, to me, it'll be pretty interesting. I'll be curious. The Miami Dolphins, again, I've documented all year on these shows that they struggle in December and they struggle in January. And, they're probably considered a sexy team because they have a lot of good players by name. But when it comes to the postseason, they've had some challenges winning in the postseason. We'll find out if some of those patterns really take place on Saturday night. Great show tonight. So what I'm going to do right now is go around the horn here and let everybody know how they can get a hold of you. I know Bo has another commitment immediately afterwards, so I want to get him there and make sure he gets all his information out there. But we'll start off with KR.
Facebook and Instagram.
Okay. Well, that's keep it simple. Stupid if I ever said one.
Okay. Not as important as some of you guys that have their own website.
Oh, it doesn't make any difference. You're important. You're a big part of what we do on the network, and we're grateful for every time you come on here. All right, George, you're up. You're not as simple as Kara Lombardia, but you have good reason to not.
Yeah, you can see me on many of these great shows here, 108 Stitches, and this wonderful Pigskin show, and the Sports Exchange, and Pundits Pundit. I'm a great part of the day and night on this wonderful network, South Florida Tribune Network. I write for Motor City Tribune, which is a Detroit and Michigan slanted kind of website that Scott and Candy have. So you'll see my articles there. And if you click on the end of my article, if you really want to get ambitious, you could buy my book, which is The History of Detroit and Michigan Sports Broadcasting. It's available there as well. So you can reach me at Yahoo at gicorn@yahoo.com. And you can reach me on Twitter at SandGSports99. And thank you, Feather, Free Bird, for the great show, guys. And thanks for being part of our audience today, all of you in the chat room.
Yeah, Feather Free Worth Farr for sure. I have a feeling that's where a lot of people are going to be watching if they want to see that one. All right, we'll go to Mel Farr Jr.
Yeah, you can catch me on all social media at Mel Farr Jr. and follow what we have going on here and in Michigan for the youth at melfarr.org.
I'll turn it over to Football Talk with Bo.
Yeah, so you can find me on all the social medias at Football Talk with Bo, and of course my YouTube channel, Football Talk, and of course on Roku 5 days a week.
Very good. And if, just in case you're joining us, just let everyone know that Inside the Pigskin is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Inside the Pigskin can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for more subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? We have some candidates in the chat room. Please send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, call me at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website's www.southfloridatribune.com, Twitter/X @TribuneSouth. We appreciate Bo helping us share the content when he gets an opportunity to do that. Candy Ebling is behind the scenes. My book is called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It can be purchased on Amazon and Kindle. Little heads up about it. It's basically old school media versus new school media. And I know it's something that everybody that can learn from. I've tried to go ahead and talk about stories in the book for which I've learned from people that I've never met and some of the ones that I've come in contact with. So to me, if you don't know anything about the business, I do everything in my power to make sure you get familiar with it. And if you do, well, maybe you'll learn a thing or two here and there. Great job by my crew today. Very proud of the participation that we had tonight. And just some programming notes. Tomorrow night, we're going to bring Pundits Pundit. Since we weren't able to do Pundits Pundit the last Thursday, Pundits Pundit will be on tomorrow and Thursday at 8 o'clock Eastern time. Sports Exchange will follow that. And, of course, Fire Up on Thursday night will be back as well. So those are some of the programming notes. So once again, on Wednesday night, which is tomorrow, my goodness, how time flies. Okay, you're going to have Pundits Pundit followed by the Sports Exchange. And then on Thursday night, Pundits Pundit returns for another episode, followed by Fire Up. So stay tuned, and we have updates. And again, you can check out our website. But meanwhile, once again, guys, proud of every one of y'all. Look forward to hopefully have Coach Bono back soon. So on behalf of Bo Crouch, K.R. Lombardia, George Eichhorn, and Mel Farr Jr., this is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Inside the Pigskin, and we will see you next week. Have a great football week, everybody, and thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening. Bye now.